Welcome to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness, where I talk about the Constitution, history, politics, pretty much anything else I want to talk about. And today is Constitution Day. Happy Constitution Day, everyone. That means it's September 17th. And, this should be a happy day when we celebrate that we have this lovely document that was written to establish our form of government to protect our rights. But sadly, because of things that have been going on lately, and especially one specific thing, we're going to talk about what is unconstitutional. All right, so I'm going to read this article about the mask mandate. Yes, Biden's mask mandate and why it's wildly unconstitutional. And this was written by Justin Haskins. And this is on thehill.com if you want to find it. In what may go down as one of the most significant attempts to expand the power of the presidency in modern history, President Biden announced on September 9th a series of sweeping new vaccine mandates, which together could affect as many as 100 million people. Oh, and by the way, if you did not watch my last episode where I talk about why these vaccine mandates are being forced on us, go listen to it. And then you'll understand, because I know it seems crazy to all of us. Why are so many governments so bent on forcing this thing on us, right? Well, go listen to that episode. I can't tell you on this episode because it'll take too much time. But the other episode is only, I think, 25 minutes or so. Well worth your listen. All right. Under the new rules, employees working at healthcare facilities receiving Medicaid and Medicare funding, the vast majority of health facilities in the United States, will be required to get vaccinated or submit a weekly test showing that they have not contracted the COVID-19 virus. So let that sink in. That means anyone working at any healthcare facility that accepts Medicaid and Medicare funding. Obviously, that's pretty much every health facility. I don't know anyone that doesn't take one or both of those. There's no freedom, there's no healthcare freedom for healthcare workers. We'll see how that works out. And by the way, this is the problem with accepting federal money. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. All right, some federal employees, as well as employees working for federal contractors, will also be subject to the rule. But Biden's rule also applies to people working at private businesses of 100 or more employees, including companies that do not receive federal funding. Businesses that fail to impose the new rule on their workers will be fined $14,000 per violation by the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration, so OSHA. So think about that. Think about all the companies that have 100 or more employees. There are a lot of companies. Probably, they said something like 100 million people are going to be affected by that. So these are private companies that don't accept federal funding. If the president can do that, if the president can reach into a private company and tell it what to do, what are its limits? I mean, what is the point of having a constitution if it can be gone around the way Biden is going around the Constitution? He's already shown he's willing to do that with the moratorium on evictions. He even said, he acknowledged that it was unconstitutional, did it anyway. This is what happens when you have leaders that don't care, that think that this is just an impediment. And for you that are just listening, I'm holding up the Constitution. By the way, if you are just listening, like on iTunes or whatever, you'll want to go find this on YouTube or Rumble, because I'm going to be using some visuals that you don't want to miss. So if you go to YouTube, go to Annette Talks. If you go to Rumble, go to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness. Anyway, so this is what happens when you have someone like Biden who only sees this Constitution as an impediment. Just finds a way around it. I think the new MO with this administration is to just do something if you want to do it, and then let them fight it out in court. And that's what's going to happen. Anyway, the decision to impose vaccines nationwide is one of the most stunning moves made by any president. A view bolstered by Biden's speech announcing the plan, which included several explicit or implicit threats and warnings. And the speech was astounding. For example, at one point during the speech, Biden, speaking directly to the tens of millions of Americans who have chosen not to get vaccinated, said, "We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us." So stopping again right there, there are so many problems with this on so many levels. First of all, he's supposed to be the president of unity, right? He wants to unify people. But like I've been saying since this whole vaccine thing started and people were pushing vaccines on everyone, it's creating a class system. You have the vaccinated with their privileges and the unvaxxed or the unclean who are now going to lose their privileges. And when 100 million people are affected, that's probably close to half the workforce. And so you have a huge number of people right now who are sitting out there with a prospect of, do I go and get a vaccine I don't want? Or do I get fired? Or people that can't handle, or what about, and this is the other thing that's just so infuriating. There's no option for someone to come along and say, I've got natural immunity because I had COVID. What? It's like not in there at all. Again, you need to go and listen to my other episode that explains why this is being pushed on us. So he's been patient, but our patience, as in President Biden and all the other leftists that want the unvaxxed to get vaxxed, want to force their will on you. Our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us. So divide and conquer. That's what he's doing. And there are so many useful idiots out there that are down with this. I see it every day on Facebook. Oh, and the other troubling thing about the speech that the article doesn't get into is when he says he's going to go after our elected leaders, that governors that are standing up to him, as if, and he even used that, elected leaders, as if saying, I don't care if you voted for those people. I'm going around them. I'm going after them. That's a huge problem, okay? Especially since a lot of us don't think that Biden was fairly elected. And in California, we saw people, Republicans, of course, going to vote and seeing that they'd already voted. So not many of us trust that Biden is properly elected. And so for him to say he's going to go after elected leaders, yeah, not okay. All right, going back to the article. Let's put aside questions about whether people ought to choose to get vaccinated or even whether businesses should have the authority to demand that their employees get vaccinated. Those are important questions, but not nearly as essential as whether the president has the power to demand that employees of private companies be subjected to a vaccine mandate. In parentheses, mandates imposed on employees of the federal government is a different story entirely. I agree. If you work for the federal government, you got to go along with whatever the federal government says, which is just another reason not to work for the federal government. On that question, Biden has violated both the spirit and explicit language of the Constitution. If the president is permitted to run roughshod over our constitutional liberties in such a reckless manner, future presidents could further erode our freedoms and undermine the protections guaranteed to every citizen by the Constitution. Yes, and this is kind of going to what I already said. If an administration like this can just blatantly thumb its nose at the Constitution and do whatever it wants, why would any other next administrations or down the line, why would they even care? There've already been a precedent put in place saying that just do whatever you want and let them fight it out in court. When confronted with questions about the constitutionality of the mandate, defenders of the president have insisted Biden has the authority to issue a national vaccine mandate under the vaguely written OSHA Act of 1970, which was created to improve safety conditions in the workplace. But a federal statute cannot be interpreted to warrant an unconstitutional law, since the Constitution is the supreme law of the federal government. And that's huge right there. You can't just say, well, I want to do something unconstitutional, so I'm either going to write this law to do what I want, or I'm going to interpret a law to do what I want. You can't just do something unconstitutional by writing a law or interpreting it in a way that allows you to do it. This is not a banana republic yet. So unless a legal scholar can cite a provision in the Constitution that gives the president the authority to mandate vaccines, or even to simply regulate public health generally, the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970 cannot be used to justify the mandate, and no such constitutional provision exists. Others have pointed to a Supreme Court case from 1905, Jacobson v. Massachusetts. Yes, I've seen this. as proof that the president has the authority to issue a vaccine requirement. It is true that the Supreme Court in Jacobson ruled that vaccine mandates can be imposed by a local government so long as that government is not acting in violation of state law. And it's also true that the Massachusetts law cited in the case was even more intrusive than the policies now being pushed by the Biden administration. But this argument also fails spectacularly for one very important reason. In Jacobson, the Supreme Court determined that a local vaccine mandate is permissible under the Constitution because states have maintained their police powers and authority to regulate public health under the 10th Amendment, which guarantees the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Okay, so this is a separation of powers issue when it comes to the different levels of government. But I also want to make another note, or another comment here before I show you this. But it's funny to me how people use these Supreme Court cases to argue constitutionality. Okay, you know what? All these Supreme Court cases, precedent has done is been other Supreme Court justices deciding whether something was constitutional. It's not actually going to the Constitution itself. And so, that's all well and good to try and predict how a court will decide, but that's not what decides constitutionality. The text of the Constitution and the intent of the founders decides constitutionality. That's something that was curiously overlooked in law school. When I went to law school, I thought we were going to learn the Constitution. When I signed up for constitutional law, which was a whole year, it was 2 semesters, I thought, awesome, we are going to study the Constitution in detail. Nope. We studied Supreme Court cases. And that always disappointed me that that's the way it ended up being. So anyway, back to this separation of powers as far as the levels of government. And if you're not watching again, you should look. But I've drawn here what's supposed to be a layer cake. Let me put a few candles on top here so it looks more like a cake. All right, we did this. I used to do this in my American government class because people don't seem to understand this. The Constitution is set up so that you have at the bottom layer of the cake, you have the city or the county, and they have their own purview. They might handle utilities or city ordinances that apply to things like zoning. And then you go up to and the city does not regulate anything at the state level. All right, then you go up to the state level and they have general police power. Like we just talked about, the 10th Amendment gives the state general police power and regulates public health, right? So the state does a lot. The state does anything that the federal government is not supposed to do. The federal government has what are called enumerated powers laid out in the Constitution. They can regulate immigration, they can coin money, they can establish banks, things like that. But the federal government is not supposed to do things that the state government is set up to do under the Constitution. So if the federal government reaches down and does something the state's supposed to do, that's unconstitutional. Now, in reality, I want to show you what's gone on for many years here, decades. Okay, so I've made this little swirly pattern. It's supposed to make it look more like a marble cake. You know what a marble cake looks like, where the chocolate is all mixed into the vanilla to look like marble. So what's happened over time is the federal government has reached way down, usually to the state level, not the city level, but it's reached down by basically bribing the states with money. So, for example, if the federal government wanted a state to lower its speed limit from 75 to 55 on the freeways, it would tell it, okay, you know what, if you will lower your speed limit, we'll give you money for transportation projects. So we'll send you X number of millions of dollars. So this has happened, and we see it in the school systems right now. I just saw a lawsuit, and I've been saying this, people don't always believe me, that a lot of these mask mandates that school districts are putting into place are so that they can get federal money. So that's another way the federal government reaches down into the states. The federal government right now wants mask mandates in the schools. So they have made federal money available to school districts who will impose a mask mandate and other mitigation efforts for COVID. So what is the article is basically saying, though, is that the federal government is not supposed to be down here in the state government. That's unconstitutional. All right, moving on. But the decision in Jacobson does not include language indicating that the national government has the same authority. So this is a really huge distinction he's talking about here in Jacobson v. Massachusetts. That case does say that mask mandates are permissible, but only because the states have maintained that police power. So basically what he's saying is that under this ruling, states could mandate vaccines. And we've seen a lot of that going on in different states, like Florida has come out and said, no, cities and counties, you're not going to put in a mandate. So that's going to be interesting to see how that gets litigated, whether a state can tell their municipalities what they cannot do, that they cannot put in a mask mandate. I don't think I've ever seen that before COVID. But anyway, nothing in the Constitution suggests that the executive branch can impose blanket vaccine regulations on private businesses or their employees. The only question that remains is whether the Supreme Court will strike down Biden's mandate. If the court refuses to get involved, the public will suffer for generations as one presidential administration after another erodes hard-won liberties. Right. Okay. And then I would add from another article that I found, I agree with this. She talked about, I think this is a she, Ilya, I think is her name, Shapiro. This is at Cato at Liberty blog. She says, first, there's a separation of powers issue in that this sweeping new regulation is being imposed by presidential diktat, with related claims about the proper scope of OSHA's statutory authority and whether Congress can even delegate such broad power to the executive branch. Okay, so what she's saying is this is a different separations of powers issue, and he kind of alluded to it in the other article, but this is where you have what everyone's more commonly familiar with as far as you have three branches of government, right? And I want to show you the articles that establish them. A lot of people confuse articles and amendments. The Constitution has Article 1, which is the legislative branch, Article 2, executive, Article 3 is judicial. Sorry, my writing's not great and you can't really see that. But the point is that this should have been written by a legislature. The executive branch, the president is not supposed to write law or put policy into place. The executive branch is supposed to execute that law once it's passed. And the reason it should be pretty obvious to people because of what happens when you have an executive branch writing law, you get a king. And that's what Biden is acting like. I want to do this. I'm going to do this. Whereas if you have the legislature doing it, you have two houses, right? We purposely put this into place. The Constitution established three branches of government for checks and balances so that this would not happen, what's happening right now. See, if the legislature wanted to pass that law, they would have to listen to their constituents, right? Every state has 2 senators, and then they have however many representatives that their population allows. So, for instance, if the legislature decided they were going to take this up and decide whether to put in a vaccine mandate for the entire country, which again, from what we just read, is not legal. Okay, let's do it at the state level instead. Since this Jacobson case seems to say that there is power at the state level to mandate a vaccine, let's just say that they did that here in Colorado. So I live in Colorado, and let's just say our governor wants a mandate, which he did with a mask mandate, and it had the same problem that the vaccine mandate would have, which is the legislature is supposed to legislate a mandate if they want it. So then what would happen is I could call up, because I do know who my state representative is. I'm not sure my state senator, I think I know, but I could call up both my state representative and my state senator, and I could even go down to their office if I wanted, and I could say, don't you dare vote for this, right? And so you would have many constituents calling up their local representatives and saying, don't you dare vote for this. And then they have to go into the legislature and argue and debate and decide as a legislative branch what they're going to do instead of one person, because then that has to go to the governor to sign or veto, right? And so it may end up at the same place, but it has to go through huge steps, and the people have got to be listened to, and it's got to be argued and debated, and not something just said. The governor can't just say mask mandate. Well, he did, and it was unconstitutional. But he can't theoretically just say vaccine mandate. Everyone, you're mandated to get a vaccine. So it's got many problems, and there's a due process issue. Whereas if you get fired from your job, it doesn't sound like there's any recourse. And I would also add that it sets up an equal protection problem, in that you're going to have the vaccinated and the unvaccinated being treated differently. So you have the unvaccinated, like I said, being treated like second-class citizens or unclean, who can't keep their job, but the vaccinated can. And that's okay, because so there are very many problems with this. And Biden has decided to go ahead and do it. And I don't think it'll stand. I hope it doesn't stand, or else we really are done as a country, and the Constitution will no longer be hanging by a thread. It will be on the ground being trampled on, which is what it feels like is happening right now. And by the way, the vaccine mandate is one of the reasons why a lot of us have a real problem with mask mandates, because we feel like if we let a mask mandate stand, what's to prevent anyone from putting in a vaccine mandate? And that's one of the reasons we're fighting mask mandates so hard at the school level. And because we don't want, I mean, it's bad enough that our kids are being forced to wear masks, but you're going to force kids to take a vaccine if you go to school? I'm not going to be shocked when and if that happens. But if it does, the schools better be ready for a mass exodus, because I can promise you that a lot of us who have put up with the mask mandate will not be vaccinating our children with this untested, unproven vaccine. All right, and so I want to do one more thing here in honor of Constitution Day. So we know that the mandate at the federal level is unconstitutional. We also know that a lot of companies are doing it, and that's fine, that's constitutional, but it's wrong. It's wrong to have to show your papers to do anything, to get a job especially. I mean, that's huge. I'm currently looking for a job, and anytime I see something that says vaccine required, I just pass on by. And there's actually a website, I think it's gab.com, where they're building a database of vaxless employers. I don't know what's going to happen with that, with the Biden mandate. But anyway, there are restaurants that will require in New York City, you're toast. You either get the vaccine or you're not going to restaurants, you're not going to concerts. And there was another state that just passed that yesterday. I can't remember which one now. But it's starting to happen more frequently, where states, cities, and private businesses are requiring a vaccine to do business with them, or to work for them, or to attend their events. And again, go listen to my episode on why this is a problem. But if you can't see why it's a huge problem to be forced into taking something into your body to have full rights of citizenship, then I don't know what else to tell you. It's just plain wrong. So I want to share with you now that I did get my vaccine. This is my little vaccine card. You can see my name right there, and I got my second shot today. And a lot of you are going, what? I thought you were anti-vax. Well, if you think that, then you haven't followed everything that I've said on Facebook. I'm not anti-vax. I'm pro-freedom. I'm not pro-vax either. Let me put it that way. I got this vaccine for one reason only, and that is because the president of my church, who I believe to be a prophet, asked us twice. And the second time he urged us. And he also said, wear masks where you can't social distance. So when I go to church, I don't wear a mask. I can't stand it. You can stay 6 feet away from me. I will never get into your personal space. So I'm not going to wear a mask unless I absolutely have to. Like I've been subbing. There's no way around it until we can get rid of that darn mask mandate. So the reason I'm telling you this is I did not get this vaccine so that I could have privileges. And from what I just read, it's now that these boosters are starting to come out. If you don't get the boosters, you're considered unvaxxed. Well, I'm not going to get the booster. I'm never going to get a booster to this. So I'm going to be considered unvaxxed in I don't know how long. But I also wanted to show my solidarity with those of you who can't get the vaccine because it's harmful to you, or don't want the vaccine and don't plan on getting the vaccine. I want to show my solidarity. I'm not using this card for any privileges. I'm not using this card to get anywhere, to get in anywhere. I'm not using this card for anything. I don't want this card. I don't need this card. So I'm going to burn it. And I have, let's see, I don't want to get this fire too close to the computer, but I'm going to burn it right here. Let me bring my camera down. All right, so you can see the card clearly in front of you. And I just like burning things anyway, but I'm going to burn the card because I'm not using it. Anyone asks me for my papers, I'll just turn around and leave because I'm not showing it. So I just wanted to show you, I'm with you. I'm not going to contribute to a system that puts people into classes and then marginalizes those that are in the other or lower or unclean class. Not doing that. Not going to be using this card for anything. So that I'm not even tempted to use it, to go along, to get along or whatever. It may mean, well, it's going to mean there are some jobs that I'm not going to be able to do. And, oh well, I'll find ones that I can do, even if I have to, I don't know, Uber or Lyft, which I really hope not. But here we go. So you can see that's the mask. I mean, that's the, I want to burn masks too, but this is the vaccine card. So let me get this thing, like getting this thing started is a hard part. I did, we did fire breathing at my birthday party recently and used these, I was able to use this just a few minutes ago. Why is it not all of a sudden not working? Come on. What am I doing wrong? Oh, I got to push up. All right, so there's the fire. There's the card again. Just want you to see me burning this. Just so I want you to make sure to see that I'm not cheating. This is burning, and I don't want to burn my hand, so I'm going to be dropping it. All right, so you can see. I'll just pull it out again. I'm going to burn it some more. So it's not fully burned, so I'm going to burn it some more now that I know how to work this thing. Got to use both hands. Okay, I'm going to burn it some more. Well, I think I got it wet. Burn, baby, burn! There we go. That's burning. Who knew it would be so hard just to burn a card, huh? Just want you to know that I'm not trying to get out of burning this card. Jeez. All right, one more time. So you can see burning. Well, you see I mostly burned it. Maybe I'll just shred it at the end here. You know, when you write a new will and you get rid of your old will, there we go. That corner's not wet. Yeah, it's burning the part that says CDC anyway, which is good, right? Nobody likes the CDC. When you get rid of an old will because you've written a new one, there are ways you can get rid of it, like burning, tearing, shredding, and I used to do estate planning. If you could show that a will somebody was intending to destroy it, that can be used as evidence that that will is no longer valid. There we go. Now that's a real burn. That sucker is going bye-byes. So I'm just going to let you watch that. This is what I feel. This is how I feel about vaccine mandates, vaccine passports, all that good stuff. It's going. I hope my smoke alarm doesn't go off. Woo! All right. So you all can see that this, whew, hot. All right. It's burned. My name is, I don't even think, yeah, I'll just show it to you. Can't even see. I don't want to get ashes on my computer, but you can see my name is gone. Everything, anything identifies me is gone. So it's worthless, and it's still burning a little bit. So it's worthless. I'm just gonna, that's how I feel about vaccine passports and mandates and mask mandates. And there'll be a time when I can come on here and burn all my masks too. So that's it. And I would encourage you all not to play with fire like that, but I would encourage you all to not, even if you have been vaxxed, to not go along, to get along, to not use your privilege. I said that on Facebook one day, and people I don't think really understood what I was saying. But I said, how are you using, for you that are vaccinated, how are you using your privilege, right? And I was just trying to illustrate a point that the people that are pushing vaccines on us are setting up a privilege, which they're always accusing us of having white privilege, but yet they're trying to set up a vaccinated privilege, and that it's not okay. It's not going to be okay. I have no problem with people getting vaccinated. Maybe it's going to be helpful. I don't know. I think, for one thing, natural immunity is better. So if you have natural immunity, I don't see why you would get vaccinated. If I was tested for antibodies twice, and both times came up negative. And the test could have been wrong. I don't know. And I'm hoping that I didn't have it, because I hear that if you get vaxxed after you've had it is when you get sick. And I'm fine so far, but it's only been a few hours. So let's just hope I stay healthy, because I have a big dance this weekend. Woo! Anyway, happy Constitution Day. Do not comply. I will not comply. I'm never going to share my vaccine status with anyone other than you guys to illustrate this point. The card's gone. I'm not going to be using any proof of vaccine for anything, because it's unconstitutional and it's wrong to force that on us. This should be private information. No one should ever know that about me. It should be only a decision between me and my doctor and God. And because a prophet asked me to do it, it's between me and God. And I'm sure my doctor would recommend it, because they're all doing it. They're all conditioned to do that. So, all right. Happy Constitution Day. Love you all. Thanks for listening. Go to subscribe on YouTube, Annette Talks, and Rumble, Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness. Oh, and if you didn't hear before, I have a radio show now, Sunday nights, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, AM 560. You can find it online and listen online. I believe it's AM 560. Just Google AM 560 KLZ. It's a Denver station, but you can listen online or through Alexa or on an app. And I have a new show called Annette on America. Thanks for listening to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness, where freedom lovers gather.